Well, we're nearly a month into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and there is a flurry of diplomatic activity around the world, certainly here in Delhi, where one of the most senior officials of the U.S. administration has been visiting for the last couple of days. U.S. Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, Victoria Nuland, joins us on NDTV today. Thank you very much for joining us, ma'am. First, just to come straight to the point, President Biden has said overnight that India has been rather shaky in its position with regard to Russia and its invasion of Ukraine. It sounds like there's a bit of disquiet in Washington, D.C. about India's position.
Well, Nidhi, it's great to be with you. We had very deep and broad conversations about the whole U.S.-India relationship, including our Indo-Pacific strategy, what China is up to on this trip, but we spent quite a bit of time on the Ukraine crisis. And you know, India has made very generous humanitarian contributions to Ukraine. We were very pleased to see the Indian students leave. We had a conversation about the fact that unfortunately, despite months and months and months of effort by President Biden, by our allies and partners to try to solve this diplomatically before the war, President Putin instead decided to invade, and not simply to invade, but you see 4 weeks on how vicious and violent and inhumane this invasion has been. You know, maternity hospitals, apartment buildings, orphanages, schools, opera houses hit. And so I think in Washington and in capitals around the world, the sheer horror of this is really having a profound effect on how we understand President Putin's intentions and whether we ever could get back to the kind of stable and predictable relationship that President Biden had hoped to have with President Putin. And I think there's an evolution in thinking going on here in India as well, and we see an evolution in position. But that's why it's important for us to talk. It's important for us to talk at our level. It's important for us to talk at the ministerial level, which we will in the next couple of weeks. And it's important to keep talking at the head of state level.
Does the U.S. though understand why India has taken the position that it has? It has abstained at different UN fora as well on this issue. Indian oil companies are also going ahead and buying discounted Russian oil. Is there an understanding about India's sort of strategic interests and its own interests that it's trying to look out for?
So we certainly know about the historic relationship and the defense relationship between first the Soviet Union and then Russia with India at a time when the U.S. was not prepared to have that kind of relationship. But times have changed now, right? They've changed in terms of U.S. and European willingness to be strong defense and security partner with India. We are doing more and more together in the Indo-Pacific, et cetera. But times have also changed in terms of the level of brutality and violation of international humanitarian law that we are seeing. So among the things that we talked about during these consultations were other opportunities for India to get what it needs, including Soviet-era equipment, potentially not from Russia itself. You know, we have been supporting the sourcing of security needs for Ukraine, along with our allies and partners from around the world, including some Soviet-era equipment. And those are the kinds of things that we can do with India as it continues to evolve its position. But we also spoke about the importance of democracies standing together now, at this moment, when the autocracies like Russia, like China, are showing what a level of threat they can be to peace and security. And we're particularly concerned about Russia and China working together more intensively with regard to this conflict. Russia is seeking weapons from China. We have been very clear with China that if they moved in that direction and became co-combatants in this war, that would have consequences for our relationship. So this is what we've been talking about, is the fact that democracies now really need to stand together and evolve their position vis-a-vis Russia because of the choices Putin has made.
But you know, there are your other allies in Europe, for example, like France and Germany, who continue to buy, for example, oil from Russia. They haven't stopped energy imports from there. Even the SWIFT sanctions against Russia do have these loopholes where when it comes to energy, Russia isn't really being punished for that quite just yet. So some would believe here that it's unfair to single India out on this. Why is there so much pressure on India regarding its position? Is it because it's the world's largest democracy and a partner in the Quad? Is that what it is?
So actually, with regard to energy, let me just correct the record here. We have, in fact, the amount of energy that India buys from Russia is relatively small. And we have made clear in our conversation that we understand that's not something that you can cut off immediately, in the same way that we've been clear with our European allies who are still too dependent on Russian energy, that we understand that they will have to evolve away from it as well. So when we made the decision in the US, in Canada, in Australia, a number of other countries, to completely cut off the import of Russian oil, we actually did not expect that from all of our democratic partners immediately because of the historic legacy. But what we do want to do is work together to find alternative sources over time. And that's what we hope to do with India, whether it's with regard to the security relationship, the energy relationship, etc., because Russia has proven itself to be unreliable and to be a violator of international law.
You have worked very closely on Russia and Ukraine for many years as a diplomat. You mentioned the Russia-China relationship. How much of a concern is it that China may actually, as some commentators are already speculating, use this as a sort of a springboard to attack Taiwan?
Well, China is obviously watching this situation very closely. It is watching what we have done in terms of international sanctions, in terms of the kind of penalties and costs that they might incur if they decided to move on Taiwan. But I hope that they are also watching how strongly the democratic world has stood together against this aggression and how quickly we have moved to respond. And they have to decide whether they want to face the kind of international isolation that Russia is facing now, whether that's good for their future. So we've been very, very clear with China, including in the President's conversation with Xi Jinping on Friday, that they need to say no to Putin's request for support in this war, and if they make another choice, that there will be consequences in our relationship.
All right, Victoria Nuland, thank you very much for the time that you gave us today. Thanks very much.
Thanks.